What are you two looking at?
The fire.
Do you not see it? You know what this reminds me of?
What?
Campfires. I mean, obviously not like this, but staring into the flames, seeing, I don't know, the embers slowly become charcoal and then ash. The flames rolling off the wood as it rises to the heavens. Well, that isn't that poetic, is it? But it reminds me of simpler times. Sitting by the fire. Not just, watching the embers and flames, but the stories, the companionship. We would sit around a fire in our camp chairs, drenched in our sweat, feel the dust, the dirt in your skin. Your sorrow all over, You had a hard day, maybe not in like a psychological sense, but physical. You were running around, playing, using your body for what it was meant for. And now your body aches from all the activity, probably all the scratches, the itching. Depending on the season, the mosquitoes would be biting at you. Depending on if the fire was damp or not. Smoke always pushed them away, but not always. And if there wasn't smoke, all the better. You may be lucky. Maybe someone you're camping with brought candles. Distract them, but maybe not. Maybe you were stuck with them. We would sit there, tell stories, look out, look into each other's eyes, see who we are, feel what we would do. It's a little confusing, but at campfire you were truly free. Depending on the area you were camping, Massaweepy, Letchworth, Stokey, Allegheny, the cell of reception would not be there. You would have no connection to the outside world. Only connection you'd have is with yourself, your friends and family gather around the fire, and nature. Boy, can I tell you the stories of skunks wandering through camp in the middle of the night, of raccoons rooting around, of bears, even, though rare, still happened. It was a time. A time that I love. A time that I wish to always experience. Every year, at least once or twice, try to go out, camp, spend time with nature, spend time with friends and families around this hollowed embers of life. Especially now in this season. Winter drives all warmth away. And yet, we like it so. But we cannot live without warmth. And thus, we cuddle in our homes, hunched over the fire, looking into its embers, trying to glean some warmth from it. And it always works, but there's always a disconnect. The pane of glass and the fire door, I guess. The metallic screeching. The lack of smoke. The lack of smell. This is all what makes a campfire. And, of course, who can forget the stories told around the fire? That's what makes it truly memorable. The jokes, the puns, as much as I don't like them. I guess that's it. But yeah, that's what I was thinking. Very melancholy. And deep. Fires truly are the gateway to what makes us. We look at them. We need them. Us humans can't survive without warmth, as you said. And warmth cannot be attained unless we take a source, a fuel. We do not nurture the kindle and tinder. Do not make it grow. Our lives can be snuffed out as easily as the trees we use for warmth. A tree starts as an acorn, I don't know, other forms of those helicopter things, and from there they are embedded into the ground. But not all of them take. But those that do will one day, probably long after you're dead, finally be at full growth. The trees we cut down have been there for hundreds of years. Maybe shorter, maybe more. But all the same, they live a life that we live once, and they live 2 or 3 times. They take all of this, and we can do what we want with it. Trees are not sentient in the sense of conscious humanity, but they are alive. They do feel some sort of something. I don't know if I would call it pain, but they're just like us humans with their bark, our skin. We cut the tree, take its insides, plastic, paper. Yet, we do not call this wrong. Because we are alive. We are sentient. We communicate. Only through science do we know that these things are alive in a sense. But just as we can make, we can also destroy. But in our destroying, do we truly destroy or reuse? Take this wood. We may chop it down, turn it into paper, turn it into building, turn it into firewood, but we are not letting their use go to an end. We are ending a phase, moving into a new one, depending on the tree, depending on the quality. Excuse me. They can create again, use their wonderfully crafted wood. I don't know any other deeper terms for trees. I'm not a treeologist. And from that, create buildings, create tools, create a new life. One that is more finite than a tree's, but still use. This fire that I stare into now used to be a tree, yet I do not think it's wrong that we cut it down, because it is not wrong. We cut down a tree and took the tree and used it for a new purpose. The purpose may seem arbitrary, but in today's time, but think back even, I guess, 100 years. We did not have as good of technology as we have now. The fire that I look at through this cast iron stove would mean life or death just a mere century ago. Now, not so much. We have come so far with technology and everything. We more or less use it as a novelty. Fire, wood is a new life for a tree. It may not have the same meaning and purpose as what it used to, but it is still a purpose. It still does something. Depending on where you live, a fire may still save your life. In our civilized world, we do not often think about the things that we take granted for. Take this building I'm in, my home. It is old, but still sturdy, and it protects me. Imagine how hard my life would be if this did not exist, this stove did not exist, and all I had were the wood. I would be huddled around the fire, blowing on it, trying to make it go hotter and hotter to heat my body so I do not freeze in the below freezing temperatures. And with that, I would find life in their life. It is always astounding what I see, what I understand about life, and what I begin to realize whenever I stare at a fire. But that's what I was thinking. Do you have anything else to say? You both have had some very good points. And there goes the fire. As I look at the fire, I see structure. I see order, patterns. Life is full of them, and so is this fire. Look at the flames as they dance across the fuel, the wood. They have the same patterns, the same shape. Yet they are new entities, but they follow the same pattern, the same path. Flames and firewood are one and the same. One could not exist without the other. As I look at this fuel, I see the wood as it has become the fuel, and how the wood has patterns, structure. The flames are caressing the flesh of the wood and cut at it, creating new patterns, new structure from the already existing structure of the fuel, the wood. I see the layers, the years. Looking here, I can at least see 80. How true that may be of how old the tree was. This is just a small piece, but I can see inside. I can see how it was built, how everything overlaps, connects, builds from each other. The flames follow a pattern. The fuel is the pattern. And this is all structured after heat, warmth, life, fire. As we've sat here, the fire has changed. The wood has decayed. The wood has brightened. But it is all still the same, all still a pattern. The flames, orange, white, green, red, they all pitter-patter across the canvas. The wood It is as we've sat here looking at this fire, it has brightened. The heat has, well, heated up. It is now stronger, yet weaker. The flames have grown and emphasized their existence by the crushing and decay of the wood, the fuel. We are looking into a cycle. This cycle is not unlike our own. Remember where we end. Everyone ends up in the ground or ash. And from that, we create new life. Not our own, but other things. Plants, nutrients. And when we create that new life, we then create the opportunity for even more life in the form of animals, humans. We grow from the dead. The same as a forest fire, though it may be tragic in the moment, it lays the groundwork for new growth, new life, a revitalization of an ecosystem. It may seem devastating, but there's always a bright side eventually. Take this wood. The tree had no choice, no option in where it would go, because it has no life in our essence, but it had an existence, like you've previously said. We take this and create something new for us, and that is another structure. We chop down trees. That's another pattern. We build bridges, buildings, tools, another pattern, another structure of life. Life is full of patterns. They may vary. Like, as I've sat here looking at the fire, the flames patterns have changed, yet they find a new pattern and stick to it before an outside force, the fuel, as it decays, changes it. And then it stays to that pattern until the fuel changes. The flame finds a new pattern. Life is full of patterns. You may go from a point to another point in a pattern. Many people think of education. First 12 years of your life not first 12, but 12 years of your life stuck in a pattern. 4 quarters, 2 semesters every year, 3-month break in between, depending on the country you live in. For 12 years. Then a break after the 12th. Then you launch into 2, 3, 4, 10 years of a new pattern, of a higher form of that pattern that you went to for the past 12. And then from there, you go into a new pattern. This pattern has more variables. There is not a all-seeing presence over you. You are the presence. The presence over you in your early years are parents, teachers, friends, family. As you get out of the first few patterns, you begin to make your own. Get married, have children, That's two patterns. The wife or husband that you take will have their own patterns that will then meld with your patterns and structure, and then you will make a new pattern structure. This pattern will then go on to form your structured life as a new patterned existence. The structure that you have will then change as you add those children. You will not be able to have the same amount of free time when you have children as when you were just with your spouse. You will not have the same free time as before you were even married. You will not have the same free time as you have as a teenager, as a school student. You will have new patterns for all of your life. Some may stay longer than others, like jobs. You may have one job for 12 years. You may have another for a year, and yet another less than. And then others you may stay in for all of your life. But there is no guarantee because, like this fire, there are outside forces. 3, if you just boil it down. The flame maker, me, the fuel, and the flame. I am, in a sense, God in this scenario. I put in the fuel. I created the flame through any source possible, but with that friction I caused. A forest fire does not happen spontaneously. It is caused by an outside force. That force, a cigarette, a stupid kid starting a fire in a forest because he's like, yeah, I'll be able to control it. Idiots, but we are the outside force in the fire. And there are outside forces in us, around us, I guess. We go our lives. We may get married. Well, outside force. Boom. Divorce. Well, that pattern has been disrupted. A new pattern emerges. Boom. Children move out. Though that isn't as sad as a divorce, it is still a new pattern. You have now experienced 18 plus years of raising another human. A new pattern. And their pattern will have been influenced by your pattern on their consciousness. And from there, you will go on with patterns, and you can always tie it back to 3 sources. They may not be the fire maker, the flame, and the fuel, but they will be you, others, and life. Life cannot be controlled. Some may try, some may get close, but there's always going to be that one variable, that one thing that you don't see, you don't expect to change anything, that will disrupt the structure in your life and create a new pattern. And then you'll have to make a new one from that. Everything in life is patterns. You just gotta look at them and see them for what they are. Patterns. A to B, A to B, A to B. 1 year, 2 year, 6 months, 3 days, 9 months, 18 years. However long you have to work to get a pension for your job. It is all a pattern. It is all structured. So I guess that's what I've been thinking. Look at us. With the three of us, we've covered ethos, pathos, and logos. The three main feelings, emotions. But this is where I must leave you to ponder, to think over what we've shared. Remember, stare into the flames. Look at the fuel. See what you feel. No, excuse me. I'm going to be returning to my ponderings. What about you two? And what about you? What will you ponder?